Revit provides standard view types for 2D views and 3D views, such as floor plans, elevations, and sections. If desired, you can duplicate a view type and customize it to use certain settings or a particular view template. Custom view types allow you to apply consistent settings to new views quickly and easily. Views can be found in the project browser and the first component there, and you can see it by default it's broken up into the type of view, and then when you double click on that or press the plus button, you'll then have a deeper list of views that are created in the project currently, mostly reflecting each individual level unless otherwise stipulated. So up until now we've been working on a ground floor level and a first floor level. We haven't really touched any other views by perhaps maybe sections or a 3D view here and there. So we're going to organize some of these views, or I'll show you how to create these views to organize them in a more of a structured manner. So under the view tab in the center of the ribbon, you've got the create ribbon or the palette in the ribbon. And so we have the ability to create 3D views, also sections, callouts or details, plan views, and there's a number of them, elevations, drafting views, as well as the ability to duplicate views, add legends, schedules, and scope boxes. We'll go through each of these individually. So the 3D view is created by default when you press the little 3D house icon. And you'll find that in the project browser under 3D view, and you'll see there's two in here, but the one that you're on will highlight as bold. So you can make more views, you can have all sorts of customized three-dimensional views, and you can use the section box with those too. And the section box is in the properties palette. You just tick that on and the section box appears, and we can then drag that around. Again, it acts like a clipping plane, sort of like Rhino does, the clipping plane in Rhino. But you can copy another view, or you can open up another 3D view and you'll have that model as it was. These are almost like named views inside of Rhino as an example. But when we go to the plan, so if we go down to our floor plan and double click on ground floor plan, this is much like model space inside of AutoCAD. These views are not placed on sheets yet, they're just independent views by themselves. So let's go through each of these one by one. So section. When I click on the section marker, the same command is listed up here in the highest ribbon of Revit as well, but the process is the same. I click the section marker and it's going to prompt me to draw, or click once to start the section marker and click again to end it. So I've already got one coming across this way, and we want our section for this project to be going through the run of stairs and the little bathroom. So I'm going to click once here next to the garage, move my hand across the screen, and then click again. And that finishes the section marker. But what you'll see as well is you'll have this like dash box that appears. You may see that, you may not. But what that is like the draw distance of how far we can see back to the back of the building. So I'm just going to click off into the distance. And what I'm going to do is to activate that view, I'm going to double click on the blue section head. So double click on that and it opens up that view. At the moment it's pretty messy. There's no view template associated to it yet. It's just showing us just a standard section. But you can see all the way to the back of the building. You can see these doors, the sliding doors in the living room, and these doors in the bedroom. If I go back, I can adjust it from here. I can change in the properties window the far clip offset. If I change that to say 1 meter, you'll see now we can't see beyond a meter from where the section's cut. And if I go back to that ground floor plan and click on the stem of the section, you can see that dashed line is now only a meter away from that section stem. I can also just drag that back and you'll see now the far clip offset number has increased to 7.6 meters. So that's a section marker, and then we can control the way section markers appear. In fact, I'll draw another one just off into the distance. I'll go from top to bottom. So I'll go once from here down to here. So through the front door, through the stairs. In fact, I might just come through the hallway. So we can change the way this appears by clicking on the stem, and you have like these little recycle icons here. And let's go down here. So the recycle icon will go through and change the symbol that's shown at the end of the section. And this little lightning bolt in the center of the stem, if I click on that, it breaks the stem in half, which is just a graphical thing, which allows me to use these grips to drag the section marker. And I can drag the section marker from this grip here to bring the head back, and then I can grab this grip to change the tail or the stem of the section marker. So you can grab both and move that around as you please. So something like that is probably appropriate. Or you may just want to have the section marker at one side of it. Now at the moment the section marker is empty, it just has dash and then dash dash dash. That's because this section, this actual view itself, we double click on it, here's the view itself, does not live on a sheet yet. And once it lives on a sheet, that will automatically update, and that will give us drawing number 1 on sheet number 5, for example. You don't have to do that manually like you do in AutoCAD. So we'll go back to our floor plan and let's keep looking around here. So that's our section marker. At least for now, I reckon we'll leave that as is. So then after that, you have callouts. So clicking on rectangular callout, that will then prompt me to, again, click in one area, click once more, and finish. And now that's like a callout section, a callout marker. I can click on that box and I can drag that around if I want to. I'll drag that down to here, so I have something like this. And I can move the head around as well by clicking on the actual callout box and then clicking on this grip here, and I can move that around. And then I've even got like an elbow I could move like this if I want it to appear a certain way, like so. Again, it hasn't got a reference yet because it doesn't live on a sheet. But again, I can double click on that head and it takes me to a callout, which at the moment it's essentially just like a blown up view of whatever I've called out. I can change my detail level so you can see here how that's updated. And if I go back to the floor plan, you'll see that here, but I can move that across to show like the whole laundry as an example. Double click and now it's showing me the whole laundry. So it's bi-directional, it's dynamic in what it's showing me. We haven't gone through annotations yet, but one thing I will note is that when you are in a call out, you can click on, and this applies to floor plans as well, but you have this box here which is known as your crop region. And when you click on that box, you get this dashed line that appears, and you may not get that. If you don't get that, it will look like this. And the reason why that's there is because at the moment we're not cropping any annotation. Now I will touch on this again later, but if I was to have some text like this out here, that will show because there's no crop for annotations in this view. But if I turn that crop annotations on, there's that. If I click on the region, you have this dashed line, and if I drag this dashed line in, it removes the annotation. So it's a way of controlling how much, not just how much you're seeing of the model, but how much you want to cut off of the annotations around your model as well. And that'll be important because you may have tags in these areas that you don't want to see, so you just drag these back like so. And that is known as your annotation crop, and those are all available inside the view palette or the view window, or the properties window, sorry, of the view. So nothing's selected, but you can go through here and change those. So even I can turn off the crop and I can show the rest of the model. Not that I want to do that, but you can do that. And I can also turn off the crop region so we don't see it. By the way, these same controls are down the bottom as well of the modeling window. You have this little icon here with the light bulb. That's to hide the crop region, to turn it off and on. And then next to it is actually whether it even crops. So I can have the crop region turned on, but not actually crop the view. Again, I'm not sure why I'd want to do that, but you can do that. You may want to just reference something very quickly within the model. Those controls as well around crops and crop regions and annotation crops, these are the same for all views. Callouts, sections, floor plans, you'll commonly come across this. All right, so that is our that's our callout tool. And even if I go back to our floor plan, and let's go to one of these sections. So let's go to this section. We can give them callouts here as well. So I can go callout, rectangle, and then I can just make a callout there. Double click on it, and now I've got my detail ready to annotate. And I can turn that to fine mode to see my wall build up. So that's one example. Now, the other thing to consider, I'm going to go back to the floor plan. Okay, so we've started adding some sections and callouts or whatnot. The next one is underneath of that is you can sketch. So you, as the name implies, this is the same for if I want something very bespoke. So let's say I want, I don't know, a detail just of these walls here. I can make a call out like this, trim that back, and now that will show like that. You do use them from time to time, not that often though. So to delete any of these views as well, you just select on them and then just go DE to delete. But it will give you a warning saying that if you delete this this call out here, you're actually going to delete the real view, and you're going to see that under floor plans. You're going to see there call out number 2. If I click on that, call out number 2 deletes. Same with this one here. If I delete this one, it'll give me a warning, and it deletes from the project browser. I can go the other way too. So let's say with these sections here, this section maybe I don't want, or this one in particular I don't want. I can go to my sections, and at the moment this is pretty poor naming. It's just section 1 through to 4. But if I want to find out what section this is, I can just click on the stem, and then in the properties window I can see here view name is section 2. And this is bi-directional as well, so I could call this ABC123, and you can see in the properties window, in the project browser, it updates to ABC123. It goes both ways. But I can also delete it from here, so I can say right click and then delete, and it won't prompt me, it won't warn me, it will just delete it, and you'll see now that that section marker is also gone. So you can delete them both ways. Okay, the next one is floor plans. So floor plans by default in Revit, you can make a bunch of different types of floor plans. You got your standard floor plan, which is what we use 99% of the time. Reflected ceiling plans, which we will use later in this course. Structural plans, which are used for, in architecture, they're commonly used for stuff like concrete profile plans, as an example. Plan regions is an interesting one. That's when you just want to, you don't want to actually necessarily have like a, you might have a like a cut, and you may want to raise the cut at a certain level. So I'll give you an example of that. If I go up to level 1, and let's say this toilet window, these are pretty common because usually toilet windows are pretty high up. Actually, I think their families are set up to work that way, because that is above the cut plane and we can still see it. What happens if I just use the standard Revit? Okay, so it's a standard Revit window, and I'll set that at 1900. Okay, there we go. So that window does exist, but it's above the cut of the floor plan, because floor plans are cut at 1 meter or 1.2 meters. So under floor plans, or plan views, I can click on plan region, and I get like a sketch palette that appears, and I can just draw a box around that one area and click OK. And that looks like nothing's happened, but I can adjust that view range to say, well, in this area only, I want you to cut the floor plan at 1800 above the finished floor level. Oh, even higher. There we are. And then we see the window. Okay, 'cause even though that's sitting up much higher than the floor plan. And if I do something like this, you'll see that the window disappears. It either has, you can see there half of the window is now showing, but when I move this the whole way, the whole window is showing. So that's what a plan region is. These things come in very handy when you have split levels or mezzanines in buildings. So I'm just going to delete that. And then underneath of that, you have area plans, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. But particularly for now, we'll even just stick with floor plans because that's what we're going to work on. So let's say we want to create a new floor plan. What I'm going to do really quickly is just show you another project. So this is my own template, and I want to do this because it will make sense. This is a very comprehensive template that's set up for commercial use, for mostly larger commercial buildings. There's going to be tons of views in here that you're not going to utilize in a residential project. First thing to notice is the project browser is completely different to how you see it inside the Revit out of the box. You can see here you have like 3 series, which is set out plans, 11 series reflected ceiling plans, 28 series is facade detail sections, and just so on and so forth. What these are though is these have been set up to reflect my view templates. So what a view template is, it's kind of like a saved, it's like a preset saved settings of how you want views to look. So if I go to my view templates, this is a different area, and that's not so important for now. But underneath manage view templates, let's make this smaller. In this project, there's a ton of them that are saved by default, and you'll see they reflect each of these views because, on building elevations, we want to see things a certain way. We want to see them at a certain scale. General arrangements, we want to see things a certain way. FF&E plans, which shows us loose furniture, we want to see those in a certain way compared to, say, concrete profile plans where I don't want to see anything other than structural walls. But say general arrangements, I want to see walls, but I don't want to see furniture, as an example. So each of these are set up very specifically to show and to tailor your view, customize it to the way that you want. And the way that we'll go through view templates shortly in a little bit more detail, but I just want to give you an idea of what view templates are as a concept. So, and the reason why is because you then create multiple types of types of views. So a good example would be if I just go to my GAs. Okay, this is just a template file. There's nothing there, some template walls. But if I click on floor plan, plan views, and then click on floor plan, Revit will give me the option to create a type of floor plan. So you can see in this drop-down box, there is a bunch of different types of floor plans. There isn't just one type of floor plan you'll use. Like I said, you might have circulation plans, partition plans, finishes plans, joinery plans. And like I said, these will show very specific things. So in here, I can say, well, I want to create new general arrangement plans. That's pretty similar to the type of plan that we're creating in this course. It's just a standard floor plan. And underneath there, we'll have a list of views that currently do not have a floor plan. And at the moment, there's only 2 levels or 3 levels in this project, including ground, and they all have a general arrangements floor plan, so they're not showing. If I untick that, it will allow me to pick those views again and create like a duplicate floor plan, essentially. So if you look in the project browser here, there's one that says GA ground floor, but if I just click on ground floor and then click OK, it will create another one, and it appears here in the project browser. Now I can change the name of it by right-clicking on it and just going rename, or I can do that here as well with nothing selected. Just go to the properties window, go underneath where it says view template to where it says view name, and I can just change that and call it, ground floor 2 as an example. I wouldn't name it like that, but you can. So that now lives there. So what that means is that essentially you can see in the properties window it says floor plan and then series 5 general arrangement. But if I click on the drop down box, just like with anything else, like that could be a wall, and now when I click on the type selector, you have all the different types of walls. You have all the different types of plan type views. So the concrete profile plan, performance plans, finishes plans, facade plans, and each of these again has predetermined preset settings of visibility and graphics made from the view template. The same thing I can do with elevation. So if I click on an elevation, I can make an elevation, and I can also choose what type of elevation that is. Is it a building elevation, a joinery elevation, or internal elevation, as an example. Same for sections. If I go back to sections, before we made sections, you saw how we did that. But in here, I have a ton that are here by default. So it could be a building section, facade section, or joinery section. And they are going to show very different things depending on what they are. I mean, at the very least, the scale is going to be different. And then same with all of the callouts. I've got callouts for facade, callouts for wet areas, etc. So that's a quick example of how that works here. So let's just go back to our project really quick. Okay, so here's our project, and we're going to simplify this, but at the very least, what we've been doing at the moment is we've been working in pretty messy views. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our plans, I'm going to create a new floor plan, and at the moment you can see floor plan, there's only one type, because that's all there is. So in here, you can see there's one floor plan, and when I click on the type selector, there's only one. I can edit type, and then in this edit type, this is where all those view templates are really important, because you can apply a saved view template, which is where you saw that big list before, to this type of view. So you can say every time I create a concrete profile plan, I'm going to use my concrete profile view template. And that view template is already set to show at 1 to 50, only structural walls, only my concrete slabs, no floor finishes, etc., etc. So you can set all that up. At the moment, none of that's set up, but that's okay. So what we'll do to begin with is let's go and create a new floor plan. So I'm going to go plan views, floor plan, and I'm going to untick this. It says do not duplicate an existing view. I'll click on floor plan and say OK. Here's that floor plan, and there it is there with in brackets number 1. What we're going to do is we're just going to quickly rename some of these. So this one here, I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to go 01 underscore ground floor, and actually I'll call it 00 ground floor, and it's all in caps. And then level 1. Now the other way we could create views is we can duplicate them. So we can take this view. So we just went through one method, which is creating a floor plan from the plan views section under the view tab. The other way is that we can duplicate them. So if I right click on level 1, I can go to duplicate, and I have the option. I've got 3 different options here. I have the option to duplicate the view, duplicate with detailing, or duplicate as a dependent. By the way, all of these commands are also in the view tab in the ribbon. Next to a few across, you'll see duplicate view, and those 3 options are here as well. So if I click on duplicate view, what will happen is it will take everything 3-dimensional and copy it, but it won't take anything 2-dimensional. So you'll notice that all of the dimensions, they didn't come across. I'll go Control Z, and let's go duplicate with detail. That will take everything. So it will literally create an exact copy of what I've got right now. I'll go back again. If I say duplicate as a dependent, this is a very interesting tool, and this is used a lot in very large projects where you've got like a very big building. So think about something like a shopping mall that stems a very long distance, or an airport. You use dependent views. So if I click on duplicate as dependent, what ends up happening now is you can see in the view in the project browser, you have level 1, and then you've got like a subfolder that says level 1 dependent 1. And if I do that again, let's do it from this method. I go duplicate and duplicate as dependent, you'll get dependent 2. And so what you can do is you can break these up and split them. So I might say, for instance, I'll have a, I'll crop this back so it looks something like this. So I get like half of the house, like so. And then this one, I'll do the same thing again. And I'll just roughly take half of the other house as an example. But the key difference is anytime I draw something, well, this more for annotation, it will show in those 2 views. So it means then that I can come to here, and as an example, let's just do something. I'll take everything here, and I'll just I'll delete all the dimensions. So I'll delete them all, so all the dimensions are gone. In dependent 1, they're gone. Dependent 2, they're also gone because they were taken away from the master view, which is this one here. Whether if I do something like this, if I say duplicate with detailing, I get this view here. Whoops, what I'll do, let me just go back. Okay, I'll do that again. I'll go duplicate with detail. I get something that looks like this. And if I do another one and say duplicate with detail, I'll get another one that looks like this. However, if I select these and say, actually, I don't want to see my dimensions, and I delete them, the other one, they still exist because those two views, copy 1 and copy 1, they're not related. Whether these 2 here, these 2 dependents, they relate to this one here, the master. So again, we're not going to use dependents in this case, and like I said, you will use them in the future, but I imagine they'll be for much larger commercial projects. And there's a bit of workflow around that. And later on in this course, towards the end of the semester, I will go through sort of a few different workflows that are more geared towards bigger commercial projects. And we'll come back to dependent views and match lines, etc. Okay, so I'll get rid of that, but let's just go duplicate, and we're just going to duplicate the view. Now, the reason why I've said that, actually, let's just rename that quickly. In fact, let's rename it the other way now from the properties window. I'm going to go over here, 01 underscore capitals level 1. And it's generally good practice that anything that's in capitals, anything that's capitalized, that goes on your sheet. Anything that's in lowercase is generally just a working view. And that's what I'm getting to the crux of. So what we've been working on so far, this view here, which is just a shambles, a mess, imported images, section markers everywhere, reference planes, dimensions all over the joint. These are what I call working views. These will not make it to the sheet. It's these views here, the ones in caps, they'll make it to the sheet. Now, because this is Revit, you don't have to worry about anything being moved or changed. So let's say, for instance, I delete this door. I go to this view, door's deleted. If I place that door again, click there, door's added, go back to my other working view, door's added again. So you don't have to worry about, in terms of 3D, physically built items, things disappearing and reappearing. They're going to be one and the same. But it does mean in this view, we can have some nice control over cleaning this view up and not having it affect our working view. So, and the way that we do that is we control that through view templates. So I'll come back to that shortly. So let's go across here and let's continue on. So let's say elevation. So there are 4 elevations that are created already in Revit. And I can move these around, and we're going to do a bit of both. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete some of these, and we're going to edit some of these. So I'll delete these 2, and we'll take this one down here, and we'll just call it south for now because it's at the bottom of the page. And I'm going to click on, what you can do is, so you have this icon here. The head itself, if I click on that, you'll get this line. And that means that's where the elevation is taken from. So imagine you're standing there looking back at the building. You'll notice as well is I've just got a line. But again, if I turn on annotate, where is it? Far clip, and I say clip with line, turn that on. Okay, when I do that, I will get this line here. And this is really good for when, for instance, so I'll show you what that looks like. I'll double click on the black arrowhead. It shows me no elevation at the moment. Okay, so it shows me the building like so. But I can have okay, so I've got this here. So I've said clip with line, thank you. So I can see my whole building here. If I go back to my ground floor and click on that again, all right, so there's that line of where we're currently standing, and then this line here is where we're seeing back to, similar to the section cut before. So I could do something like this and watch what happens now. I'll see the building up until the garage because the garage is cut beyond. Now again, you might be thinking, why the hell would I want to do this? Again, think about much larger projects. Let's say you got a school campus and you have multiple buildings in the background. You don't want to see the building behind this one, so you can adjust that clipping plane so you only see what you want to see. The other thing too that you can do, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn off. So under far clipping, I'm going to click on that and just say don't clip. Just show me back to infinity, and that's what's happening. So that's this line here now doesn't have a dash line partner because it's just showing us back to infinity. But what I can do, I can come to here and where is it? Oh, I'll be under here, far distance. Actually, I'll go through that shortly. So what I will do, so what I will do now is I'll click on the body, which is the circle. Just click on that. I can drag that around. And when I drag that around, I can move that close to the building, but that is just an annotation I'm moving. When I click on this black arrow, you'll see the line is still back here. But I go back to here. I click on the arrow and the circle and then move it. You'll see that the line moves with it. So if I just click on the body, the circle, and move it, I'm moving just the annotation. If I click on the arrow, the line still stays there. But if I click on both the arrow, hold down Control, click on the body, and then move it, I'm moving both the location of the section marker, or the elevation marker, and annotation-wise where it's sitting. Because you'll know that if I go back to my view here, you'll see that updates in here. But if I move that away like that, and you'll see it updates, whoops, where is it? You'll see it updates here, even though that arrow hasn't moved there. So It'll be very finicky of that. Now you can turn on more elevations as well. So again, the dash line, the dash there means that there's no view reference. That elevation has not been placed on a sheet yet, so it's just showing as a dash. And these arrowheads are unfilled, but there's little tick boxes there. So if I click on that tick box, it will then make an elevation, even though there's nothing over there at the moment. But this works really well for internal elevations. And if I want to turn that elevation off, I click on the body and then untick it. And it will say elevation 1C will be deleted. Sure, okay. And then it turns off. So that's those two elevations. And I'm going to go to my ground floor. And generally it's good to do this in your, like, what I would say your production view, because this is the one that everything has to be nice and clean and neat and tidy. So I might as well move it from this view. So I'll just take those two and I'll move it like that. Now let's say we want to create a new elevation view. I'm going to come to elevation, click on the drop down box and then say elevation, and make sure at the moment I've got two types of elevations that are available: interior elevations, building elevation. Of course we want a building. And Revit's pretty smart. You'll see that no matter where I've hovered my mouse, it picks up on what surface is closest by and flips the orientation of the elevation to suit. So if I want an elevation over here, I just click once, and then an elevation over here, click again, hit escape twice, and now I'm out of the command. Click on the arrowhead and you'll see that that section's there. But you can see, actually, it's a good point. By default, the far clipping plane is turned on, so I can adjust that clipping plane. Or in this instance, I'm just going to say no clip, turn that off, and now you'll see that marker is by itself. There's no dash line there that denotes how far back you're going to see. All of these things, by the way, notice how I just had to do that twice. These are exactly why you have view template, because you would set it saying for building elevations, I never want my elevations to clip. Whether, let's say, an internal elevation, I only want to see to the back wall that I'm doing an elevation of. I don't want to see a staircase in the distance, as an example, or something like that. Okay, so that's elevations. The next thing across from that is drafting views. Now, drafting views, the best way to describe this, it's a CAD view. That's all it is. So when I click on new drafting view, it will ask me to name it. So we can say in here, I don't know, let's just say detail, and it's a slab detail. And then you choose the scale, so 1 to 10, whatever, and say okay. And it just opens up a white view. And there's nothing here. And you'll see in the project browser, there's now a new category called drafting view. Double click on it. There it is, detail slab. So I can do whatever I want. We haven't gone through annotations yet, so just bear with me. I'm just going to sketch something really quick. But I'll do something like this. And let's say I've got something like that. Okay, and I'll just change that to concrete. I'll just do something like that. All right, so that's my CAD view as an example. I can then reference this in a call out. So this is something I didn't go through before. So if I go back to the ground floor plan, I'm going to go to a section, and then now I've got this call out here. But what I can do is I can actually, instead of detailing this up, so let's say we have this detail here. If I go and create a call out, I go view, call out, rectangle, I can do something like this, and I can double click on that, and now I can start detailing that up. And that's fine. I can draw over the top of this to add more detail. That's how you get these details to look much more refined. And I can make that 1 to 10. And then you can see it looks really good now. You can see the full build up of the wall and the slab, all the rest of it. We can draw our Rio in and all the rest of it. Now, if I happen to prefer detailing in AutoCAD, or perhaps I'm working in an office where I've got someone who's really good at drafting, but they only use AutoCAD and I'm the one using Revit, that doesn't actually matter. I can reference that view inside of my model. So I'm going to delete that call out. I'm going to go back to this section. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go call out and rectangle. And this time I'm going to, in the modify panel, I'm going to click on this tick box here. It says reference other view. I can click on that and say, I'm going to reference my detail slab view. So I click on that, and I'll just go like this, and then I double click on it, and it opens up the drafting view. So you can reference another view completely. I mean, this could be anything, any shape, could be anything at all, and it would just reference that view. And you'll see that now when I go back to my building section. You'll see now that this says sim, so similar or it's essentially referring to something else. The reason why you have this sim is because sometimes it's very common that in a project you'll have the same detail repeated multiple times. So typically, let's say for instance, it could be a sliding door that goes out into a balcony in an apartment building. Now you've got one of those on every floor. So you might do a couple of call outs and you'll have one that's detailed and then you'll call out the others, you'll draw the call out, but you're not going to keep detailing them up. What you'll do is you'll reference the first detail you make. And so it will essentially say similar. It's sort of like saying on level 3, the balcony detail is the same on level 5, and you can tell because it's got the similar detail called out. So that's an example there. We're not going to be using this in our assignment, but it's good for you to know, especially when you work in your complex projects assignment. So that's drafting views. We went through we went through the duplicate view tools, and then we have legends, and then we have schedules. There's a whole class dedicated just to these two later on in the semester because that's such a big component. So we're going to leave that for now. What we are going to do though is I'm going to show you how to edit a view template, one for elevation and one for a floor plan, and then from there you'll be able to create your own view templates and your own views now as required for both my assignment and for your working drawings assignment. Before I create view templates, I'm going to add some annotation to our views, as they'll be a major component in what we control and how we see those categories when we make view templates. So I'm going to annotate now my production views. I'm on my ground floor plan, no longer working on my working ground floor plan. The Annotate tab holds essentially everything that you're going to need to detail our views up and call out certain items. The key item to remember with the Annotate tab is that these things here, whether it be dimensions, detail lines, hatches, tagging or whatnot, they will only appear in the drawing that they are placed in. So a great example of that is if I just go ahead and dimension from here to here as an example, when I go to my working ground floor plan, I can see that dimension is there. But if I was to delete that dimension there, come back to here, that still exists. It's independent of each other. Even if I just let's do like an odd dimension. I'll go from here to here to the center point of the door, something like that. I go back to my working floor, you'll see that's not there. It's a different dimension altogether. So that's the key difference here, is that anything that we create here on this view that's under the Annotate tab will only appear in this view, and that goes for every single view. So we've gone through the dimensions in some detail, but let's just touch on those once more. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I turn this into fine mode so I can see the construction of my walls. And I'm going to go to my Align Dimension tool, and I'm going to pick underneath the green ribbon here, you have the ability to pick what item of the wall you want to dimension, whether it's the center line of the wall, the faces, the core faces, etc. And I think probably the best way to do this is, I'm just going to double check, make sure that this is correct. Okay. All right. So I'm going to take this wall here, just copy this over, and I'm going to take a stud wall and just draw this here, as these two would probably depict this quite well. And I'll use both of these as well. So when I go to dimension, doesn't really matter which type of dimension I'm using at the moment. You can see by default Revit has a bunch in here, but we'll go through editing these at a later stage. So under the Align Dimension, we've got faces of core, wall center lines, etc. So let's start with wall center line. So if I click on that, I'll hover my cursor over the wall. By default, it picks up the center line of the wall. Now you'll notice with these two, and then I can go ahead and dimension. It's pretty simplistic, but it's the center line of the overall width of the wall, irregardless of where your core boundary is. If I now go down to, say, centers of core, if I do that again, it's hard to see, but that dashed line is not in the center of the brick veneer wall. It's in the center of the core boundary of that wall. With the stud wall, it still ends up being the center of the stud because you've got plasterboard on either side, which makes up the two finish zones, so it's evenly distributed across the two. So then I'll get rid of these, dimension, And then more importantly, these ones we use probably typically more. You have wall faces and faces of core. So if I go wall faces, I just go bang, bang, it picks up the 250. If I go bang, bang, that will be 110 because the 250 is the total width of this wall, including the plasterboard, and the 110 is inclusive of the two finishes zones, the 210 mil plasterboard faces. So if I go again and go faces of core, when I go 1, 2, it picks up 240. And it goes here, it picks up the 90 mil timber stud. Now, I've had my thick lines turned on this whole time, but if I toggle that off, you'll notice that when I hover my mouse over, by default, it's picking up the faces of the stud wall. So that's a good tip for you to utilize, and generally this is why it's so important that you set your walls up correctly, because when you dimension, you don't necessarily want to be, so if I have this to wall faces, you don't want to be zoomed all the way in trying to pick the face of the stud, and you can see how hard that is. It either picks up the face of the stud or it picks up the center line of the wall. I can hit tab on my keyboard and it will cycle through different selections close to my cursor, which does include the face of the core. So I could go 1, hit tab, 2, come across to over here. You can see by default it's finding the plasterboard, but if I hit tab, it will find the face of the stud. And again, and so that's fine. I can do that, but that's extremely slow because I've got this set currently to wall faces. Now let's do that again. I'm going to go back, I'm going to go faces of core, and I'm going to dimension the building from this far back. So I'm just going to go, let's go again. Oop, not centers of core, faces of core. And see how far out I'm dimensioning, and it's picking up the dimension that we want. And that's generally how it's going to be, yeah? Like you're not going to want to be zooming in, picking every single component one after another. So that's the different tools or the different methods of dimensioning. And this is the same for all dimension types, whether it's linear, angular, whatever it may be. It's still asking, do you want to pick which face of the item? So this has to do with faces of walls, or the way that we dimension walls. But you can dimension, obviously, you can dimension anything, including openings or whatnot. The next thing in that ribbon is whether we're picking individual references or entire walls. Now, the individual reference is exactly what the name implies. So we take this wall, wall up here. I'm going to take the brick stud, the brick veneer, then the timber stud, that little nook, and then the other brick veneer wall. I'll drag that out and just click, and that ends the string of dimensions. If I want to do the openings, it's pretty easy. I just go from brick to brick opening. For the sliding doors, just click away, and then we got something that looks like that. So that's totally fine. But Revit can do this automatically for you in bulk. So I'm going to go back to dimension and click on, instead of picking individual references, we're going to pick the entire wall. So when I click on that, you'll see this button, this options button now becomes selectable. So if I click on that, it brings up the auto dimension options tool. So at the moment, it's not going to dimension openings, and it's not going to dimension intersecting walls or grids. We don't have grids, so don't worry about that right now. So if I say, well, let's try each of these. So I'll click OK, then I click on the wall I want to dimension. So I click on this wall here, and then it will pull out the dimension. I don't have to click the references on either side. I can do the same thing here. We'll just pick up the width, the length of that entire wall. So let's stick with this one at the moment because we've been working on this wall here. Let's go again, and I'll go options and say this time, give me the openings, but give me the center of the openings. Click OK, click the wall, and you can see what exactly it's done that. Now it's picked up the center line of those doors. All right. Now we're not going to want that. It's pretty rare that you're going to really want that. What I'll do now, go back to here, and I'll say, give me the widths of the openings. So I'll click that wall, and now it's given me the widths of those openings on that wall. Much, much quicker. I'll drag these two back, but what's happening at the moment is we're still picking up only anything that's, I guess, any geometric changes to this wall. We're not picking up any intersections of this wall. So I'll go again, options, intersecting walls. This is the last one. So I can go OK. I can click this wall, and you'll see it's going to pick up the laundry now as well, because this wall here is intersecting with this wall here. So it picks that up. If I go to another wall, let's say this one here, it's going to pick up the pantry width, as you can see, because these two walls, that wall and that wall, intersect with the brick veneer wall. And you can change how these appear too. So for instance, with this one here, I can go options and say, no, don't give me the openings, just give me intersecting walls. If I say okay, it's now going to ignore the 2 glass doors, but it's just going to give me the internal sizes of the internal sizings of walls. So that works quite well as well there. So if I do this wall, you'll see it won't pick up on any of the openings there. So that is the different methods in which you can set your references in dimensioning. I honestly have to say that although that is a very cool tool in Revit, I've almost never used it because I've always wanted to pick exactly what I want to dimension at what time. That might be because I work predominantly in commercial and you don't just go doing strings of 50-meter buildings, just doing one dimension over the other. Things are usually dimensioned back to grids. It's a different methodology. However, what you can do though, and this applies whether you dimension them using the automatic references or whether you picked individual references, you can change dimensions after the fact as well, or change what is being dimensioned and what isn't. So let's take, for instance, I'll get rid of, actually no, we'll use this one. So let's say, for instance, we didn't want to dimension this little nook here. I can click on the dimension string and I have the ability to edit the witness lines, and these witness lines are the different width and the different references that pick up the dimension. Because remember that in Revit, it's actually picking up the width of those walls and reporting back to you the distances between them. So I can go edit witness line, and I can hover my mouse over, say, that wall. If I click on that, this may not be the best example actually. I might just do another one quickly so I have control over what is being picked. Let's just do that again. I'll go from there to there. Okay, that's good. So let's say it's this bathroom. Whoops. I'm just going to hide this floor because those lines are a bit. Okay, so something like that. What I can do is I can click on the dimension string, edit witness line, and it might be hard to see on the screen, but those different parts of the walls are lighting up green. Because what that's telling you is that those are the points that Revit are referencing to report back the dimension. And I know that if I click on that wall and I change this size here to say 300, it moves that wall and it will report it in the dimension string. So these dimension strings, it's not like an AutoCAD. I can't just double click on it and then give it a new value. See there, the value's grayed out. I can't even type in anything because it's reporting back that true distance between two objects. I can't manipulate that. I can replace it with text, but that's about it. So what I'm going to do is click on this, go edit witness lines, and then I can just pick on one of those green lines again, and it will then remove it from the dimension string. And then when I'm happy with the edit I've made, just click into open space somewhere, and that ends that. Now that dimension string is modified. If I wanted to add that again or add more to this, I can click on this and say edit witness marks, and I can continue to make more dimensions. Or I could say I want these ones back, and you might say actually I don't want these, and then just click into open space again, and that ends the dimension string or the dimension command. That's how we edit dimensions after the fact. Okay, so that is the general process of dimensioning within Revit. A couple of tips: I would stay with faces of core 99% of the time, and I would usually pick individual references so I have complete control over what I'm picking at any given time. Next up, let's take a look at rooms. So rooms are actually three-dimensional objects within Revit. So I'm going to go back to my architecture tab, and the reason why I'm doing that is I have to place a physical room for me to actually be able to tag a room. So under the architecture tab, I'm going to go halfway across the ribbon and you'll see room and area. I'm going to pick on room. And what will happen is you're going to see that Revit picks up automatically, it picks up the bounding walls and they highlight in blue, and it tells me that, hey, there's a room here. I can place a room. Now, this is already a poor example because this is a kitchen area, dining area, that's a living area, but it's making the whole thing as one. You can see the X is covering that entire zone. If I hover over the laundry, it's much more intuitive. It's just showing me the laundry area. So if I click, that turns into room 1 with a blue box. I can click in the garage. That's going to give me the garage. I can do the pantry, this little room here. And I'll tell you what, let's not click anything in here and let's do something else first. So I'll hit escape twice and those blue boxes disappear, but they still exist. If I hover over one of these areas here, I can actually I can hit tab, and I can get that X, and then now that's the room. And so a room, like I said, is a three-dimensional object. It's invisible, but it is a 3D object, and it holds a ton of metadata, and this is how you get room schedules. So you'll see in the properties window, you've got where the ground floor, where the room currently is the ground floor, where its upper limit is, it's 4 meters high, which is not true. We would have to change that to be ceiling bounded, because otherwise it will give us a fake cubic or volume. And that's important when we want to do calculations of, HVAC requirements, heating and cooling and whatnot. But the area stays the same. And then underneath of that, you've got the number, the room name. So it's bidirectional. So tagging is bidirectional. All the tags are, so the tag is the thing on the screen. It says room and then 2 in the box. So the first thing you have to get through to comprehend is that is just reporting information. We can write it in both directions. So this is a garage. So, or let's say I call it something wrong, like carport. I can click enter, and now that's updated. And the room number is number 2. But I can also click on the tag and then just click on the name and update it here. And then when I go back to my room, hit tab to select my room, and then you'll see garage is updated now in the properties window. So it's bi-directional, moves both ways. All this is doing is reading the object, which is a room, and reporting that information. In areas like this where you haven't got walls that are room bounding, next to room you have room separator. If I click on that, it just comes up with, it's basically like a sketch palette, and it's just a line. So what I can do is I can say, all right, well, from this point to this point, I'll just drag that, something like that. Now, what will happen is it acts like an invisible wall. So I can now place a room again. The shortcut for that is RM, and you'll see that now that area selects as a different room to this area. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to go room separator, and I'm just going to go 1 across here from this point to this point. All right, and I'm going to go from this point, go down like that. If I turn on my thick lines, that's what it looks like. Now let's go again, RM for room. We'll call this as our living area. That's our kitchen. That's our sitting area, and that's our entrance. Don't mind how the tag looks. So that's the third component. The first thing is, what is a tag tagging? Secondly is, what data is it reporting? And is that data correct? And thirdly is how that tag appears. That's the last thing I care about right now. There'll be another class in how we actually go about editing these tags. It doesn't matter whether it's a room tag, wall tag, door tag. The process to amend them is all through the family editor. It doesn't matter if they need to appear a certain way for my class versus another class versus a practice versus another practice. The process is exactly the same. Okay, so now we have our room tags placed. Now, there might be some periods where you don't have the tag. So what I can do is I can click on the room tag itself and delete it. But I will get this warning saying that a room tag was deleted, but the corresponding room still exists. You can place another tag in the room using the room tag tool, or select the room and delete it. So that's important to remember, that the room is a physical 3D object. It still exists, even though the tag no longer exists. And there's that room there that I've picked up. So I can tag that just by going across and saying room tag and tag room, and then just clicking back in that room. It will report what room that is. So we'll go around, and what you'll do now is you'll update these to report the real name of the room. I would still give them room numbers, but we'll end up making a tag where there is no number, it's just the name. So if I go up here, well, room tag always has the number, but we will get rid of that when we edit the family later on. So I'll call this one living, kitchen, etc. And the process is exactly the same on the first floor as well. So next up are tagging doors and windows. So you're going to dimension your whole floor plan. We've made rooms, we've tagged the rooms. It's now time to tag doors. So I'm going to go back to my annotate tab, and about 3/4 of the way across the ribbon, you have this tag here. So again, like I was saying before, all tags are some sort of graphical representation of data being reported to you from the object. So I'm going to say tag by category, And what happens now is Revit automatically picks up on what item I'm trying to tag, what category of family that is, and it will then give me the appropriate tag associated to that category. So in this instance, it's a wall category, so that's why it's giving me that diamond shape at the moment with a question mark. But if I click on the door, you'll see it's like an ellipse sort of shape. I click on that and it reports what that mark is. So I'm just going to, and then I'll do the window as well. So I'll click a window. So I've got a door, a window, and a wall. I'll hit escape a couple times, and let's take a look at why, for instance, the wall is reporting back a question mark. So if I click on the wall, firstly, it is a wall category. The wall tags are set as diamonds by default, but what it's looking for, this wall tag, if I go into edit type, it is looking for the type mark, which is down here. So it's like a type-based code. So if I go here and I go WT01, and I'm doing that because that is the name of our wall type, and say OK, that tag will update and say WT01. Again, don't worry that graphically that doesn't look right now. The visuals of it we can adjust later. It's the metadata we want to be sure of. Okay, next up, the window. So if I click on the window, windows and doors are referring to the mark, not the type mark. Type mark means change one, changes the code for all, but windows and doors are instance based. So here for the window, this might be window 3, it may not be. And we may update that mark to just say W03. And then this one would be W02. Doors, very similar. I can click on the door, and this might be D01. Or your project, it might just be 1. Or it could be DOA, door type A, or something like that. It really doesn't matter. As long as the corresponding metadata here then will then spit out onto the tag. But I can change it too. I can go back the other way. I can click on the tag and say, actually, I made a mistake. This is actually window number 8. I can update it here. Looks like nothing happened, but when I click on the window, you can see the mark has updated to W08. So again, bidirectional metadata. I'm going to tag again. So TG is the shortcut to tag. And in the green ribbon, underneath the main ribbon, you've got this button here that says leader. I'm going to turn that off because I don't like the leader. I can just hover my mouse over the window and it will tag. And at the moment, you see it's picking up an 11. Even this one here for the garage door, it's 15. The numbers that are associated with it are just default. Doesn't really matter. But again, they're instance based, so that's why that door and that door have different numbers. But watch what happens when I tag this wall. See, it comes up with WT01 because it remembers that this wall type and this wall type are the same because it's fetching data from the type-based parameters, not from instance-based parameters. With one level preliminarily annotated, I'm going to go through now the workflow and methodology to editing annotations and dimensions. So let's start with dimension types. At the moment, a lot of our annotations in this view are set at 2.5 millimeters, or in some instances even bigger, which is just simply too big. So let's start with dimensions. I'm going to click on the dimension, and in the properties in the type selector, we can see there's a bunch in here by default in Revit. I'm just going to take the standard one and go edit type, and we're going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to call this one Arial underscore 1.8 millimeters. Okay, so really the way that this is broken up is this first component is to do with the graphical look of the dimension line itself, such as its tick mark, the line weight, the extension distance, all that sort of stuff. And then the second component is around the text. So let's start with that first. In terms of text, change it to 1.8 millimeters. Text offset, I'm going to change to 0.1 millimeter. That's basically all I want to do. I might want to change my background to opaque instead of transparent. So when I've got a dimension over a hatch pattern, it would show as transparent. I'm going to leave it as opaque because that's what I generally would like. The rest of that, I'm going to essentially leave. If you want to play around with these for different methods or different applications in other projects, you can do so, and that's where you can edit all the text components. In terms of graphics, I'm just going to essentially make everything slightly smaller, and there's no real method here. It's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what works for you. Now, just in terms of these sizes here, so dimension, line, offset, in fact, I might just even these up. I'll make that 2 mil. The witness line extension, I'll make 3 mil. Witness line extension, I'll make 2 mil. And I'll leave it at that. And let's see what happens. So I'll say okay. Alright, so that one's now updated. Okay, and that looks a lot better, but the tick on either side is just way too big. So let's go back in there, edit type. And where is that? Witness line. Okay, tick mark. That's 3-dimensional. Sorry, 3mm diagonal. Let's change that to 2mm diagonal. And I'm going to leave the witness control line at 5. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that brings that up. Yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah. In fact, I might even just make these 1.8. 1.8. Can I make that even smaller? No, I'll leave that for now. You can make custom ones, but I'm just going to leave that by default. That's better. Okay. So, and then what we can do is, in these areas where your text is crushed, you can click on this little grip here, and you can move your number to either side, or you can move it below. Now, you get like this little leader thing that appears, and in order to turn that off, I just click on, well, I've already selected my dimension line, and I just come up to the ribbon and click this button here. It says leader, untick that, and that turns off. So it depends on which way you want to do it, whether it's something like that or not. And then what I can do is I'm just going to right click on one of these 2.5mm dimension strings, select all instances visible in this view, which is all of these, and change that now to Arial 1.8, which means now I've got a little bit of work just to revamp these and make sure these are all neat and tidy. But that's the general process, so I'll do that shortly. The next thing to look at is that we can add text to our dimension strings as well to help clarify what we're dimensioning. So let's take this dimension down here. That is our walk-in pantry. That one's our staircase, but they're quite far away from that area, so it might be hard to identify. So what I'm going to do is just double click on the number, and I'll get this dimension text window that appears, and I can either add text above, before, after, or below. So if it was before, I could even just put that there. I could say like walk-in pantry, say apply, and you'll see how that appears there. But typically underneath works quite well. So I'll say walk-in pantry, like so. Okay, and then the next one, so let's say this one, it was the living room. Double click on that, underneath living, and there we go. So that's how we add text to our dimension string as well. Alright, so with all of that down, let's take a look at our tags. So the process is exactly the same no matter the tag type. It just depends on what information the tag is calling and what you want to do with that tag graphically. So let's start with the fact that all these tags just have text that's way too big. Let's begin with our wall type tag. So I'm going to click on the diamond. And I'm going to click on, once I click on that, I'm going to click on the ribbon, the modify ribbon, and click on edit family. And essentially, remember that this edit family zone is kind of like the block editor equivalent. So there we've got our diamond. If we click on this here, this is known as a label. So inside of tags, you have label types, and the labels essentially mean they pick information out of the model. So when I click on that piece of text there, it says label 3mm currently. First thing I'm going to do is change that. So I'm going to go edit type, and I'm going to rename this and call it 1.8mm and change that size accordingly. Okay, so that's much smaller now. Next, I'm going to click on that label, and then up in the properties, up in the modify ribbon, I'm going to click on edit label, and this is where you can see what metadata this is capturing from a wall. So this is a wall tag, so it's going to only going to fetch information from wall category items or elements, and at the moment it's capturing the type mark. I could capture anything I wanted here. I can even have the wall height if I wanted to, but the type mark is what's currently there. That's it there, and the sample text that's showing inside the family is just 1T, but I could put in there like, you know, WTXX as an example, so we can just see how big that's going to be, and that looks really good. The last thing we need to do, and I would recommend that you do this with almost all of your tags that are inside a shape or some sort of outline, is to make this a masking region, which is kind of like a hatch pattern, but just a blank white hatch. And the reason for that is if I go back to our floor plan, if I drag this, so I've got this here, I've got my flooring. As soon as I drag this over here, you can see that the number or the box is see-through. I'm getting the lines underneath of it. May not seem like a big deal now, but can very quickly become very messy to read your drawings like that. So I'm going to go back into our family editor, and I'm going to go up to create and then masking region, and then I'm just going to pick lines, hit tab, select them all. Now all of those are selected, click OK. Looks like nothing's happened, but that's now a white box, not just 4 lines. Okay, that's now done. And what I'm going to do is, you can either go File, Save As, but I'm just going to speed this up, and I'm just going to say Load into Project and Close. And I'll load it back into our class. Do I want to save this? No. You've always got access to the original if you just open up a blank file anyway. And then here it says this tag is already loaded. I would like to overwrite the existing or overwrite the existing and its parameter values. For tags, it's always the first one. So click on that and you'll notice that this will update now. The diamond's there. It's no longer see-through. Okay, and the text is smaller. That's much easier to deal with. The other thing as well with wall tags is that I can change the leader on it. So this leader here, I can click on here and say, go edit type, and then leader arrow currently says none. I'm going to change that to a 30-degree filled arrow. So it looks like that. Okay, it becomes a little bit more clearer which wall I'm currently tagging. In fact, I might make that a 15-degree, is anything less? 20-degree filled. That's better. And so if I keep tagging these walls, so let's say I pick up this one here, you can see WTO2 picks up because I've filled in that metadata, and I might use a free end leader, so I can just hover over the wall, click once, and now I can choose how far back I want to have that leader, like so. And if that's not working for me, I can always change the size of that tag too. So I'm going to go back into here, and I'm just going to make that diamond slightly smaller. So I can do that just by selecting everything and going RE for scale, and then put in numerical, and I could just say make it, I don't know, 0.8 the size. Something like that. Okay, so alright. And then these lines here, I can actually just get rid of those because these lines are all here. Alright, that's pretty tight, but let's just see how this looks. I'll load that back into our project and then override it. Yep, cool. That's better. That's a little bit better. Okay, alright, so that's our wall tag. Window tag now. So let's go down our window tag and go edit family. Now again, you've got that hexagon shape, and we've got this label which is currently 3 mil. Again, edit type, rename 1.8 millimeter, change the corresponding text, and this tab size I just changed to 0, whoops, or just 1.1. What? Yep, okay. And the width factor 0.1. Leader border offset 0.1. That's better. Okay. Alright, so the label is fine. It's picking up the mark of the window. So I'm just going to put in XX. But what we are going to do is I'm going to change this shape first. So I'm going to go create, masking region, and I'm just going to create one box that looks something like this. Okay, and then click OK. And then I'm just going to draw a line. So LI for line, just draw a line across. And I'm going to bring this back to about here. I'll get rid of that. And then I'm going to mirror. In fact, I'm going to get rid of the rest of these and then just copy this down. CC for copy from that point to that point. So you end up with something that looks like this. I'm then going to drag this down like so. And I might just make these a little bit wider. So I'll make that 4.1. Click on that one and make that 4.2. All right, now this top area, I just want a text box that just says W. So I'm going to go up to create and I'm just going to put in text this time. So it's not a label, just dumb text. I'll click once. That's going to be a massive text size. I'm just going to click W in capitals and then I'm just going to move that over here. And now we need to edit the size of that text note. So I'm going to go say rename 1.8 millimeter. And do the same thing again. Now, the reason why we have to do that again is because a label and text are two different types of objects or elements. So we did that already for our label, but we haven't got a text that we've got that does that. So I'm just going to center that. Yep. All right, I'll just drag that back to here. And I'm going to make that not transparent. I'll make that, sorry, not opaque. I'll make it transparent because the white box is already opaque. All right, that looks good. So that's our window tag. I'm going to just go load into project and close. So put in our new subject, our class for today. Do I want to save this window tag? Nah, that's fine. And then I'll just say override. Now, the reason why I've done that is because it will automatically select all of them and update them. And you can see our window tags have now updated appropriately. Much better size, much better visual style to what we're after. Now, if other classes want you to do window tags in another method, you know the workflow in order to do that. And then the door tag is very similar again. So I would create like a circle with D at the top and then the door mark underneath, making sure that both of those are at 1.8. And that's the key metric here, is that basically everything is 1.8 millimeters except for the room names, which we'll do in a second. And that would be the workflow to update door tags as well, or for that matter, any other tag. I won't do the door tags because you'll know how to do those now, but I am gonna do a room tag. So I'll click on the room tag and say edit family. Again, that opens up, but the reason why you're seeing these sort of overlaid with each other is because you've got multiple types of labels that have visibility parameters based on them. What that means is essentially certain things will show depending on which type of label you decide to use. So if I go back into the project and click on that room tag, in the property selector, in the type selector, you can see I have room tag, tag with area, tag with volume. If I click on tag with area, it will give me the number, the room name, and the area of that room. And that's based upon a visibility parameter. So if I click on this, you'll see that under visible, there's a tiny little equals button that has to do with show room number. And if I come over to here to my property, my family types, you'll see if it's a room tag, it just shows the room number. If it shows the room tag with area, it shows the number and the area. And if it's with volume, it won't show me the number, but it will show me the area, but it will show me the number and the volume. So that's how that works. Now, you'll notice, and this tricked me for a long time, I can't see that box around the number, which is very frustrating. And the reason why is because it's hidden by default for some reason. So I'm going to go RH on my keyboard. I'm going to go VV on my keyboard and go annotation and click this little box up here and also tick this automatically sketch dimensions and say okay, and that brings this up now. So first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take the text, the name of the room. That is totally fine. I'm going to leave that 3 mil. This box here we need to also see, and what I'm going to do is the room name is always shown, but we need to go up to family types and we're going to create a new type of tag. So I'm going to click on this little icon here and this is going to make a new type, and I'm just going to call this room name only. and click OK. And what I'm going to do is untick show room number. So essentially, when room name only is selected, it's not going to show me volume, it's not going to show me area, it's not going to show me the number, just the name. All right, and then I'll say OK. And I just want to click on these and make sure that these have that visibility parameter. Show room number. Yes, they do. Okay, that's fine. Now, we'll just do that again. We'll go learn to project and close into our project. Yes. Do I want to save this? Nah. Override. Yes, thank you. Now, it looks like nothing's really happened because I have to now select that room tag. Click on this and you'll see there's one that's called room name only. Click on that and everything else disappears except for the name of that room. You'll also see when I click on the word kitchen that the little grips are down here to move the room around. The reason why they're down here is because inside that family, that those red crosshairs, these crosshairs here, that little arrow is in the intersection of those crosshairs, and because you do have up to 3 different lines of information, the crosshairs or the little grips to move is in the center. So that's why it's not perfectly over the room name actual label, but it's not really a big deal. So now I can go through, I might right click on this tag, say select all instances visible in this view, so it takes all the other tags, and change that to room name only, like so. And now I can move these around so they sit much neater in my screen. Alright, so that is how we edit tags: room tags, wall tags, window tags, and door tags. And that's also how we edit our dimension strings, or our dimension types. So I'm going to clean these up, and when this drawing is cleaned up, we're then ready to apply a view template to this view to then copy to our first floor plan. A view template is a collection of view properties such as view scale, discipline, detail level, and visibility and graphical settings. You use view templates to apply standard settings to a view. View templates can help ensure adherence to Office standards to achieve consistency across construction documentation sets. With our 2 floor plans now annotated and completed, we can then clean these up using view templates. This is applicable in a residential project, but even more powerful in commercial projects where you have 20, 30 drawings of the same series. So what I'm going to do is in the properties window, I'm going to come down about 3/4 of the way down to where I see identity data, and underneath of that I have a view template. I click on where it says none, and it brings up the palette to apply or to assign a view template. Currently there isn't one assigned to this view. Revit does have some out of the box in its own template, and we can use these to build ours from. So I'm going to click on architectural plan, and it doesn't matter which view template I use, they display in the same manner in terms of the settings and options available. So within these view properties, these are set. Essentially what you set here will be saved to the view template, and then this view template can be assigned to as many plan views as you would like in this instance. So starting with the scale is at 100. The display mode is normal, that is fine. The detail level is currently coarse. We would like to change that to fine mode. In fact, what I'll do is I'll quickly just assign this architectural plan view template to this view. I'll just click OK. Alright, so that's updated. Doesn't look like too much has actually changed, but it has changed our drawing back to being coarse. So again, and you'll know a view template is applied to this view because when I go down to the bottom of my modeling screen, you can see all the views, all the scales are now grayed out. The graphical settings are grayed out, and even the coarse, like medium, fine, coarse, that's all grayed out as well. That means that there's a view template applied to this view. In fact, you'll know as well as if I go VG on my keyboard to bring up visibility graphics, everything in here is grayed out. You see, I can't tick any of these, like I can't turn off or on the doors or anything like that because there's a view template attached. So I'll go back, and I'm going to click now on my architectural plan view template. So let's continue on. So currently it's this detail level's coarse. I'm going to change that to fine. Parts visibility, leave that as is. The only other ones we're going to look at is VG override model. VG override annotation. So VG, visibility graphics. So I click on that and this window appears, and this is where it's so important to arc back to the original concept of Revit, where there are no layers, there are categories. So in here we control the way in which we see some categories. Take for instance, let's go down to say doors. If I don't want to see doors, I untick that, I click OK, and then I'll click OK again, and you'll see now all the doors disappear. My drawing moved back to my detail mode, to detail level of, fine level of detail, and the doors have been removed. Go back to here, model override, I'll click on doors, but this time let's say you can see if I click on the plus icon, all of these are subcategories underneath the doors. So if I click on all of these, and let's just say I want to show these as red lines, okay, and I want to show them as dashed red lines, dashed height, I'll go like that. That is only going to be for projection lines though, so watch this. So I go like that, the doors come back and they show as dashed red lines. Okay, go back to here. Just remember though that you do have the ability to change the way that that any of these elements or these categories look, both in projection and in cut. So it's been cut in a floor plan, it might show differently to if it's been shown in projection. So I'm just going to turn this back, clear the override, turn that back to standard. So within our visibility graphics for our model categories, which is everything three-dimensional, there's nothing we actually want to hide in here, so we're pretty much fine. It's actually the annotation category, so clicking on the annotation tab. By the way, me going through these different tabs is the same thing as me closing this. Sorry, let me just fix up those doors. I've got to do that again. I hit cancel, not escape. Okay. And then I click on annotation here. It's the same thing as me just going through these different tabs. So annotation categories, we want to hide the reference planes, those red dashed lines that we were using to sketch. So I'm going to go reference lines and reference planes. We haven't used reference lines, but just for a good habit, I'm going to tick off both of those: reference planes, reference lines, and reference points. Even though we haven't used points or lines, we've just been using reference planes. It's just good habit. So I'll click OK. I'll click OK again. The doors have changed back and those reference planes have disappeared. The other thing that you should know is I'm just going to hide this floor for a second, and you'll see these room separator lines. I commonly get this asked as a question by students, is how do I hide those lines? So I got to click on that line, and you'll see in the properties window it is a room separation line. So if I go back to my view template and visibility graphics for my model categories, by default people will think, oh, it's a line, so it must be an annotation. And normally you'd be right, but not quite here. That is a three-dimensional line. So if I go out of here and go here in my 3D view, you can see those lines show in 3 dimensions. They're not an annotative. There we go. They're not an annotative line. They're not only visible in the view they were drawn in, they are visible in the 3 dimensions as well. So go back to the floor plan, architectural plan. So under model categories, I go to lines and then click on the plus icon, find room separation. There it is there. Untick that, click OK, OK, and now those lines disappear. All right, that looks good. Now, so let's go back to here. Is there anything else we want to look at? No, basically everything else is all good here for now. We'll go through these a little bit more as we go through different types of views. The other thing too is you can choose to include items in your view template or not. So say under the architectural plan template, the scale is set at 1 to 100, but we may want to have one plan at 1 to 50 and another one at 1 to 100. So what you can do is you've got this little box here that says include or not include. So take for instance, if I don't want to include the scale and I click OK, even though the view template is applied to this view, and if I come down to my detail level, see it's all grayed out there, I can't change that. I can now change the scale because I've chosen not to include the scale as a preset inside of my view template. All right, I am going to turn that back on though. The other one as well, okay, No, that's fine. So what I will do now is I'm going to go up to level 1, which is also finished. And because I've already done this once before, I just have to go View Template, apply the architectural plan, which we've now edited, click OK, and all those graphical settings that we went through before have now been updated. And that's a big, big time saver. There are some things in there though that just changed here, which I don't want to affect. So I'm going to go back into my architectural view template, and the view range is something that I want to be different between the two levels. So I'm going to untick view range and say okay. Nothing happens here, but what I can now do is click on view range and edit this. So I'm going to change this here to unlimited and unlimited and click OK. That's so we can see our walls below our first floor. And what I am going to do just to clean up this first floor is I'm going to go to my Annotate tab, click on Region, and I'm going to go Masking Region. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen 2.5, and I'm just going to trace around, actually pen 3.5, thicker line, and I'm just going to trace around this here. What I'm actually doing is I'm just going around the outside of the building, and I'll do this for basically the entirety of the building. I'm just going to sketch this really quick. So I'd continue around, and then I'll come out to here. I'll do something like this. And I'm going to take these outside lines and turn that into invisible lines. Okay, and then click OK. And what happens is it looks like I've hidden everything below our first floor. But what I am going to do is right click on that and say override graphics in element by view. I'll come back to here and then change my transparency to say 20%. Okay, and then say okay, and now you get that nice faded look between your first floor and your ground floor. And even here you can clearly see where I've got that masking region and where I don't. And if I want to edit that, I just double click on that masking region, and I can continue to draw, choosing my line style here in the selector. So I can just keep going around here like so. Clean that up. I'll turn that one to a pen 3.5. That should be a invisible line. Okay, and there we are, and that looks pretty neat and tidy. I got a little bit more cleaning up to do there, but that looks a lot better. So that's all done. Now the other way to make view templates. So the method we did then is we clicked on a view template and we started editing it from within here, and that's totally fine. But what I will do this time is let's go to our facade. So let's go one of our facades, our front facade. And really quickly, I'm just going to tag some of these items up. So good thing is that now the tags are complete. It's going to pick up on the metadata that I inputted throughout the project. So door 1 picks up window 1, window 2, even the wall types. So the door, wall type 3, and I can just drag that around, do something like that. Wall type 4 there, these windows, etc. You get the idea. It's quite intuitive. This is what's so good about BIM and how it stores the metadata. It becomes really easy. You can see how quickly we just tag that up in a matter of seconds. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to edit the view and then save it as a view template. So these levels here, firstly, this is not a view template thing, this is per view, but I can click on one of these levels and I'm clicking on the dashed line. And you can see this little icon here that says 3D and an open circle here. I can click and I can drag that bubble. If they're not pinned, are they all pinned? Yes, they are. The levels are pinned. So I'm just going to select them all and unpin them. Okay, now I'll do that again. Click on that bubble, drag that across. Okay, so it looks something like that just to clean up the drawing. And then what I can do is on that ground CL, I can click on that and click on the little lightning bolt, and that brings that down. And then I can move where that little drop happens, like so. And then I'll tick this one, I'll turn that on like so. All right, then on this side, I'm going to click on level 1 and untick that box. That's the way I can show or not show the relevant level name or the level head next to the level line is with that tick box. I'll click on that again and I'll move that back the other way to about there. That looks good. Okay. And then I will, well, I'm not going to pin them because what I need to do now is go into the next elevation. So let's say like east elevation as an example. I can do that again. I can click on this, drag this out to here, go through that process, clean this up again. Turn on level 1, turn off level 1 there. Drag this back to be like so. Now, with the, say the east and then the west elevation, I can do the same thing and I can clean this up here as well. But what you might find is if I move this here, let's say I move this all the way out to here, and I go back to my east elevation, now these lines are back out to here. And I'm like, oh, hang on, I thought I moved them back. And then you move them back, and then I go back to my west elevation, and they're all pulled back into the project again, like close to the building. This drove me nuts for like a year after I first learnt Revit. And it's something so simple. What you have to do is when you click on one of these elevation lines, you've got this little button that says 3D here. If you click on that little icon, it says 2D. And what happens now is you can move these. I've got to do it for the rest of them too, actually. Okay. Now when I move these, it's only moving it within this view. So if I drag this all the way back to here and then go to my east elevation, you'll see they're still in the same location. I've got to do that in each of these views every time I want to move these independently of each other. It's not common that this happens. Usually you'll set your views up and you'll set your big elevations up with your level heads, and that will be generally the way that you want to run that for the whole project. But just know that ability to change them is there. The reason why you have the 3D and the 2D is because, again, in the 3D world, if I click on 3D, I'll get rid of the section box. These levels are like invisible actual 3D planes. So when I move those level heads back and forward, I'm moving them this way and I'm moving them the X direction and the Y direction when the 3D button is ticked. When it's 2D, it means that this 3D plane is sitting in the same space regardless, but the icon or the annotation is moving independent of the actual level. This drove me nuts for a long time. Okay, so I've got something that looks like that. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, next up, let's hide our reference planes. So instead of going to the view template, because we're editing this ourselves and then saving as a view template, I'm going to go VV or VG, whichever one you prefer. It's the same command, and bring up visibility graphics. This is everything that we were just using before, so it controls everything by category, both for model categories, everything 3D, annotation categories, everything 2D, and just whether you see them or not, and if you want to change how they appear. So underneath annotation category, I want to hide my reference planes, reference lines, and reference points, just as a good rule of thumb, even though we've only got our reference planes. Click OK. They disappear, looks like this. Now, let's play around with some graphics a little bit more. I'm going to keep these at a 1:100 scale. I'm going to make sure this is in fine mode. And then in here, I'm going to change my graphical settings, my display settings. So I'm going to click on this and it brings up this graphical display options dialog box. And you can just have a bit of fun in here and play around with it how you like. So I'm going to change the style to shaded. Click apply and you'll see that updates. I'm going to go to my shadows and say cast ambient shadows and cast other shadows. And then go to my, so I'm casting shadows and ambient shadows, depth curing I'll show in a second, lighting, let's use just still lighting, how does that look? Not sure why it appears so dark. Oh, ambient light. There we go, bring up the ambient light, bring up the sunlight. Okay, something like that. Okay, there we are. All right, so got something like that going. Now, what I'll do, background, no background here. So depth curing. So this is great when you've got long elevation. So I'll be really exaggerated here, but if I say show depth, you've got the fade limit, so from all the way to dark to all the way to light, and then how far or near that is. So if I bring that back to here and say apply, oh, too far. So you can see how the further back the elevation goes, the more faded it becomes. And you can play around with this and sort of how far it actually fades beyond, depending on how far back that goes. This is usually, again, this is very helpful when you've got a very long elevation or multi-campus sort of building. I'm just going to play around with that a little bit more. Yeah, let's say something like that. That will do. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll save that. I'll say okay. And then with these windows, I just want to try something over our graphics by element. Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do, let's try and do that by visibility graphics. So under visibility graphics, I'm going to go down to Windows, and then let's go surface pattern. No, transparency. So under transparency, I'm going to change that to say like 40%. Click OK. And now you can see we can see through our windows and elevation. And be the same thing for the doors. So I'm going to go visibility graphics, VG or VV, go to my doors, transparency, give that 20%, say OK. Okay, there we go. Doesn't quite work though, because it's going to change how our doors are appearing, like our garage door. So I'll go back. I might just leave the front door as black for now. We can amend that a bit later. So that's not too bad. This is if you want your elevations, by the way, to be in shaded mode. Like you may like this mode, but in hidden line mode, like that. Or you may not want shadows at all. It depends on the graphical style you're going for. But usually elevations, at least again in the commercial world, elevations are contextual. You don't really build off of them. They just give you context of what you are actually building. All right, so let's say that we've got that. We like that. We've done a bit of work there to get our elevations to show like this. So what I can do now is go to View, and in the ribbon, the very first button says View Template. I click on the little drop-down box, and I can either say apply a view template properties to a current view, which is what we did in the last one. This time we're going to create a view template from the current view. It will then ask us to name it. So here I might just say building elevations. Okay. Now it's coming up with that there. Do we want to change anything? No, I'm happy with that because we just amended it here. That's now saved. I can then go into here and apply it. So building elevations and say, okay. And another really good way to apply view templates is I can just go into my project browser, click on one view, hold down Shift, select all of these views, and then in the properties window, say I want to give all of these this building elevations view template, click OK. Looks like nothing's happened. Go to that view, and now that same template has been applied with the same graphical settings. Like so. That's a very effective look. I still have to go through and clean up some of the annotations. So you'll notice like with the section marker, I need to clean that up. Like so. And then take my levels, clean these up too appropriately as I did in the other one. And then also I need to tag these items like in all the other views. All the sheets in the project are found in the project browser under the Sheets tab. Currently, by default in Revit, it opens with just one sheet, and to activate that sheet or to navigate to it, simply double click. This is currently A101-unnamed. So here we have our title block. This works much like Paperspace within AutoCAD. So I can select a title block, I can edit it. These are all like dynamic, or these are all parameters that I can fill in. And we can just click and drag drawings on this sheet. But first of all, we want to create new sheets and we want to change the title block. This one at the moment is an A0. And if I click on the type selector, there is only one type of title block in the project by default. So I am going to go up to Insert and then Load Family, and then I'm going to scroll the way down to where it says Title Blocks, double click, click A2, and then click Open. It looks like nothing's happened, but when I click on the title block in the type selector, I can now click on A2 metric. And there we go. There's our A2 title block. I want to create some more views now, so I'm going to right click on New Sheets or Sheets and say Add Sheet. It's going to ask me which title block I want to use, which is the A2 metric, and say OK. And then I have now A102 unnamed. So it will pick up on the sequence of drawing numbers and then use them going forward. So let's right click on this first drawing, A101, and go rename. And we'll change this to A00 and call this one cover sheet. Okay, so that's updated there. And you'll also see if I double click on that view, it's updated here on the title block too. Cover sheet A00. So let's go the other way. I'll double click on A102 and then go into the title block, click on that, and then I can change that here to A01. And then the name is General Arrangements. Like so. That doesn't really fit well, but we'll edit the title block at a later stage, and you'll see that fits in here. Okay, so hope if I spelt it right. Okay, that does actually fit now. That's good. Okay, so if I go New Sheet here, it picks up on the last number, so we'll pick up on A02 now. And A02 for us is building elevations. Now another way we can name these is by not going into the title block, but just looking in the properties window, and you'll see here sheet number A02, sheet names currently unnamed. We can put in here building elevations. That updates on the title block, and it updates in the project browser too. So there's three methods in which you can input data into this. The other one is through schedules, but I'll leave that for a later time. So let's add a few more. So new sheet, another one, and another new sheet, another one. Okay, so A03, that is going to be our section and details. And then we're going to need sheet 4, which is going to be at this point, it's miscellaneous, but I reckon that within that miscellaneous, if you look back on the assessment task, you need to do reflected ceiling plans, exploded axonometric and section view, and using the exploded tool, and also an internal elevation. We probably will end up with more sheets than this, but that will work through that workflow when we get to it. So now we have our sheet set up here. We can then simply double click on that sheet. So let's say our general arrangements. Let's take our 2 floor plans. So I click on ground floor, and I just click and drag onto the sheet, and there it is there. So I'll put that over here like so. So when that comes on, it comes in like a window, and I can just drag this around, kind of like a viewport in AutoCAD. And so the size of that box is controlled by the crop region within that view. The title here, I can hover over the title and I can click and drag it around. If I click on the drawing and the box highlights, when I drag it around, it drags the drawing and the title. But if I just hover over the title, I can drag that around independently of the view. So I might do something like this. And then to move the length of this stem, I click on the drawing, then these 2 little blue grips show. I just grab one of the grips and drag that back like so. So it looks something like that. I'll grab my level 1, just click and drag onto the sheet, let go of my mouse, and then just click to place. And you see Revit sort of helps you out by snapping it to the same place, so you know those 2 views are now aligned. I'll click on that again, I'll make that a bit smaller. I'll move my level 1 so it's in the same place as the other one, which it is now. And I'm probably going to need to do a bit of editing here, so I can select them both, move them across. And you can see that's still pretty tight. So this is where I need to go into this view and just clean up the elevation marker and the section marker. So I can do that by either right clicking on the view and saying activate view, or by clicking on the view and then clicking in the ribbon saying activate view, or the method I like to use, just double click into the view, and you know you're in that view because see, everything else is grayed out, the other plan's grayed out, the title block's grayed out, so you know I'm inside that model space. So I can just click on the section marker, drag that back, the elevation marker, drag that back, and then to get out of there I can just double click into open space, and I can use my arrow keys just to move that back to put some breathing room between them, and then I might clean this one up as well. Okay, something like that. It will take a bit of time just to sort of eyeball them, but that's a pretty good start. And you'll see how you have to amend these as you put them on the sheets. There will be constant updates that are happening to these floor plans that we haven't got at the moment. The building elevations, I'll double click on that sheet and we can go again. So we'll start with north, place that there, south, east and west. Now, east looks like this, and you're probably thinking, what the hell is going on here? Double click into that view, move the section markers down and up. Double click out of the view, and you'll see now that box is much smaller. So I could go down to here, but now that east elevation marker is all the way down here. So I'll just hover over the elevation marker, or the title, what's known as the view title, and then just click and drag that back to here. Click on the box itself, the drawing, and then move that stem back. Same for these two. Click on the drawing to move the stem. Okay, and then east, west. Now what we'll end up doing here is we'll clean these views up. So you'll see that in the north elevation we have all the level heads ticked on the right hand side, and we have the same thing done in the south. But what we'll probably do is we'll tick all the elevation markers or the level markers on the left hand side in the north elevation, and then keep the south elevation to the right. So this way you got level markers on one side of the page and on the other side of the page, and I'll do the same thing here as well. There's quite a lot of work to do to our elevations still to bring them up to full documentation spec, but at least now they're on a sheet. It helps us out a little bit as well, just getting that that preliminary layout before we start adding more detail. And again, you'll probably want to come to the sheets to work on them, and you'll see in the project browser where those sheets now have drawings, there's a little plus icon, and when you click on that, it shows you which views are actually applied to that view, or to that sheet, sorry. And again, it really helps because in the project browser, anything that is in capitals we know is going to be put on a sheet. Anything that's lowercase means it's just a working view. So what we started with when we first started in Revit, this working view still exists. You can see how messy it is. There's reference planes, the drawing underneath, and those dimensions are still there, and it doesn't hurt at all. They're all still like that. But when we go to our production drawings, our general arrangement sheets, we've now got cleaned up, choreographed, or collated and choreographed working drawings ready for production. The other thing you'll notice well is on that view, notice that the elevations now have these tags filled in because they now live on a sheet. So this is drawing number 1. You'll see number 1 on AO2. The south elevation is drawing 2 on AO2, and so on and so forth. And you'll find this, let's say when we get to our sections and details, which we're not going to work on today, but I'll just drag it on there. So section AA, I'll just drag this over like so. I'll just leave that there for now. But notice that on the GAs, the section heads are now filled in. So it's section number 1 on drawing AO3.